faculty and administrative leaders while they're here. A handful of us will be taking part in those meetings, so we're looking forward to that. So that's all from me. Any questions? Cool.
Okay, thanks Luke. Chris?
Okay, hello everybody. Hope you guys had a fantastic week. So on my end, thank you all for passing the mental health bill last week. It was a phenomenal thing that you guys did. I appreciate that a lot. And working with Luke and some members from the from the GAC on the new governance board changes that are coming up. So that's more to be discussed once we get to our new business. Other than that, the year is winding down, so there's not so much going on my front. Unless you guys have any other questions. Yeah.
How many of those governance board write-ups have you gotten?
Oh, I've gotten 7 out of 13, so not too shabby. It would be great to have gotten 13, but we got 6 or 7 out of 13. So hopefully, with the governance board changes, we could increase participation from that. Let people know that this is important, because my big spiel with getting those reports in is kind of letting people know that what you're doing is important, and we shouldn't have to kind of coalesce you to kind of do your jobs. And I made a thing of that at the last governance board meeting, that you should be here because you care, not because you have to. And that's the big thing about, in general, being in student government, kind of making these big changes to Colgate that a lot of students don't recognize is actually happening under their noses, which is why, in my opinion, the governance board selection bill is also really, really important. Yeah.
What are you planning to do, if anything, with the statements that you've received? Do you want to present them?
Oh, they're supposed to be going into the newsletter, I believe. So kind of just a rough summary of kind of what the governance board does, what they do, and major changes that they've made. Some governance boards, they can't talk about what they've done in particular, but the vast majority of them can. So it should be really interesting to see what they've done over the past semester. So,
Right.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, so obviously, as you saw in my email, Tamela Flack is supposed to speak tonight, but I am not seeing her, which is an interesting development, so we might have to table that. Other things Hallie already mentioned, but there's a slew of elections that will be occurring in Senate, so it's very important that y'all attend those meetings. We're going to elect the new treasurer of the BAC. Then later on, we're going to, next meeting, whenever that may be, we're going to elect a new liaison and a new secretary of campus affairs. So also, by the way, if you're interested in these positions, just something to keep an eye on. And then the other thing is, on the final meeting, we are going to elect or approve Jenny and DZ's new cabinet. And then we are also going to do the BAC. So those things can be done by slate, but we'll talk about it when we get down to it. So that's the timeline moving forward. As Luke mentioned, this is the last constitutional bill we'll see all semester, because it'll be voted on as well on that last meeting. And then anything else that you would want to see, there's obviously only 2 more meetings. So please start thinking if there's a bylaw bill, if there's even just a conversation that you think should be had in the Senate, stuff that's looking towards the next year even, please start thinking, because there's only 2 more meetings. Any questions for me? Okay. With that, we will move into committee reports. AC.
What's up, everybody? Gavin couldn't be here tonight, so I'm taking his place. We got a lot of good stuff done this last week. We followed up with the PE people about PE credits for workouts, and because there's a new PE director coming in, we're going to be following up with her in the summer and in the fall, hopefully getting that through. As far as printers down the hill goes, we had a meeting with John Beers, and basically they're in agreement about getting those printers down there, but we may have to contribute some SGA funding, and hopefully we can get that in place by the fall. Myself and Ty Moore followed up with the positive psychology course. We've talked to some professors in the psych department and the philosophy department, and generally they're on board, but they do have a couple concerns exactly about how this would be done, whether it would be in the form of an FSEM, what exactly that would look like, what topics would be covered, and etc. So we're going to keep exploring that by talking to Frank Fry as well. As far as parking, with the lib, we got a response from Campo, but a couple more details need to be worked out there. And the syllabus library for the classes is going to be discussed in the next AAB meeting, so students can have more access to information for registering for courses. And having classes outside when the weather's nice. We're going to be following up with Dean McLaughlin here in a couple days. And finally, with the language credits and PE credits, we're going to be meeting with the respective deans and professors regarding those departments here in the next couple days. Hopefully able to bring some more updates to you for the next 2 Senate meetings so we can get some of this ironed out before the year is out. Any questions?
That's great. That's a lot of stuff right there. Thank you, AEC. That's great. I look forward to hearing more about all that. EAC chairs.
Hi, everyone. So, do you want to talk about recycling first?
Sure. So we met with Greek presidents last week. I'm still getting in touch with them as far as like rounding up the contact information for all their sustainability chairs, but we will have that as like a developed committee by the end of the semester, so we can start figuring out like infrastructure for recycling in GLOs on Livestream.
Yes. And then as far as international student hosting, Kintaro has been amazing with helping us with that. And so we decided like that's definitely our long-term plan, but before we do that, we have like a lot of little things to iron out. So one of those, we're looking into getting driver's ed for international students on campus, and also cruisers that go to their weekly dinner, so they don't have to like rely on volunteers to drive down. And then I'm taking Jen and I are taking 7 people to Middlebury this weekend, and there's 9 schools in attendance, so we're looking forward to a lot of good ideas coming back.
Thank you. Okay, GAC.
Hey, what's up, everyone? So, at our GAC meeting on Sunday, we looked at the governance board selection bill that you're going to see today, and we also looked at how we can put new senator training within the bylaws to make it mandatory, and so that all senators who are new get a good start into SGA. Otherwise, yeah, good stuff.
Thank you, Ben. SAC.
What's going on, everyone? I reached out to Ms. Thompson this week. She runs the Moodle page, exploring options for creating a forum for students to be able to interact with the SGA and directly submit concerns. Other than that, I'd like to give a shout out to the AAC for the printers and other stuff. They've done a great job in taking that off our committee's hands. Salute. Thank you, guys.
So we have a bill coming forward today, and then we have 2 more pieces of legislation coming next week. Yeah, filling up for David again this week, and he'll be here next week. So.
Okay, don't quote me on that.
You'll have to eat your words next week when he's
Yeah,
here.
that's not. I say things that I shouldn't say sometimes. Okay, is there someone from CLC here?
I think I am.
Oh, wonderful.
All we really have is dorm reunions next Thursday, 7 to 9. Any questions? Let me know. That's all I got.
Okay, no, yeah, that's great. All right. Okay, so with that, we can move into new business. It looks like Hannah's here. So we're going to hear a bit about the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force. I'm sure she would welcome any questions that the body has. So if we could welcome her, that would be great.
So I'm still wearing 2 coats when I'm outside, and I took a picture when I left the office because I felt like I couldn't see the JV Colgate from Lathrop Hall. So happy spring, everyone. I just want to make sure some students asked that I give a little update in terms of the President and Provost's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force. We have about 65 members. The task force is comprised of faculty, students, and staff. So there are 16 faculty members, 16 students, and about 33 staff members. We've been meeting mostly the spring semester. The task force, since it's a large group, we broke out into some smaller working Those working groups include student inclusion in the lives of faculty and staff, inclusion in the lives of students, a responsiveness working group, campus climate, a working group looking at leadership, accountability, strategy, and vision, one that looks at DE&I programs, and then there's a steering committee that was appointed by the president and the provost. I think most of the working groups, hopefully they kind of sound self-evident, but I think just so everyone is aware, the campus climate group, they're mostly focused on looking at assessment of DE&I across faculty, students, and staff here on campus. Responsiveness, they're looking at things like our equity grievance policy and process, most of the process, and then how the university responds when there are failures of inclusion here on campus. I think the faculty and staff working groups are pretty self-explanatory. They're looking at sort of that full life cycle of those constituents. And the DE&I programs group, it was absorbed, or rather Alana Affairs. There's an Alana Affairs committee, and Alana Affairs really took that on, which was great for the faculty, students, and staff that serve on that committee. Some emerging sort of themes, right? We're not quite at a place where I wouldn't want to reveal recommendations or anything like that before the working groups are ready, so I don't really think we're quite at a place where I would feel comfortable more publicly sharing, because I don't think we've really finalized or sort of felt like we've come to some agreement on recommendations, but a couple of points that I thought students, particularly SGA, might be interested in, thought I'd summarize some of the areas the inclusion, student inclusion working group is looking at. You know, thinking about things like student recruitment, obviously, student support, particularly from a wellness perspective, residential life, meal plans came up, social hosting, conversations around social hosting. The other working group, I thought SGA might be kind of most interested in hearing some of the themes that they're looking at, would be the responsiveness working group, thinking about and exploring a bias incidence response team, an education and outreach kind of group. We don't currently have one on campus, but that's something that group has talked about, explored, researched, as well as student roles, right, and sort of how we have a bystander intervention program now, but how students, you know, might help us in terms of outreach, education, that sort of thing. Right now, I feel that it is. I think it's a place, and I think the group feels it's a place where students should be interested in and want to, or we might encourage more student involvement. I didn't actually present I didn't prepare a really long or lengthy presentation because I actually thought y'all might have some more questions for me, and I wanted to kind of give you a snapshot or an overview. The one thing that I do want to make clear, it's very clear after spending part of fall semester 2017 and now most of spring semester 2018, we really do need to continue this work, and working groups really do need to continue into next academic year. So if you are interested in serving on a working group, please do feel free to contact me. I'm more than happy to think about how, I know it's a busy time of year for students. If you feel like this semester is not going to work for me, but next year I'd be interested, just absolutely. Christopher Wells or myself, Tamara Flack, T-Flack at Colgate.edu, just let me know. I am happy to sort of cover more formally, but I thought I'd take a pause and just see if folks had questions before I went any further. Yes?
Members of this body have brought up instances in which the EGP board and their processes might discriminate certain students on campus. The Abrar Fayaz case comes to mind from 2014. Has the D&I group talked about these cases, talked about these issues, and is there anything moving forward that the school would like to address
just so you're aware, it involves folks from Haven, Kim Taylor from Student Conduct, Lynn Rugg as the timeline coordinator. There's a leader of students that serve on that working group. We have definitely talked about what EGP can and cannot do, right? And we have absolutely talked about the ways and the places that we might fill gaps. I think the bias incidence response team is a very good example of sort of a place where we need to be thinking a little more carefully about how we educate and support individuals who particularly who are reporting incidents of bias, right? I'll be honest, we have not discussed individual cases, and there's a reason for that. As a matter of FERPA, and so there's a legal ramifications to speaking about particular cases. However, we have thought about the process broadly. Again, we're early in conversation, so I don't have great concrete things to share with you today, but that has definitely been a part of our conversation. I think at the end of the day, we want to remember that the equity grievance process, it is there. If you look up our EGP process, you'll see there's a whole panel of folks that work and serve on that kind of within that context. And beyond the responsiveness group, those EGP members, sort of on a case-by-case basis, often debrief, think through what do we need in terms of training, what do we need in terms of looking forward, and then there are opportunities throughout the year for members of the EGP to also, again, kind of think about, because they are so well trained and versed in EGP, to think about that process and kind of reflect upon their experience and think through ways we can improve, particularly education. So I think beyond the responsiveness group, that slate of, and I think I don't know why this number sticks in my head, I think it's about 35 folks, but if you count them up and that number's wrong, I apologize, that consistently sort of work within and towards the benefit of our EGP process, beyond the responsiveness group. I was hopeful for hands. I really actually thought we'd have. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got
You can go. Yeah.
Another concern that's been brought up to me by students has to do with campus safety and how campus safety is by a wide majority white officers. Have you guys discussed like training or maybe looking into diversifying that pool or in the way in which that they act at the school? Has that been something that's been brought up? Campus safety.
Go ahead.
Also with that, there's only one female officer as far as
So there are, yeah, right. You are right. Not one, but wow, this is so much better than two. Let's just. I mean, I really. I'll be honest. So diversification of our campus. That actually it's discussed a little bit more in the faculty and staff. I should say a little bit more, a lot within the faculty and staff working group, and not just campus safety, but the faculty specific. The faculty as a body, but then also other places, spaces, pockets where really you need to be thinking more critically. So we have looked at recruitment practices from a staff perspective within that working group. I think some really good ideas. One that I'm not afraid to share. A lot of we do the way recruitment, particularly within campus safety, the way it sort of the way it flowed There were a group of folks that would sort of come in more on a part-time basis, train, and then fill in full-time slots. One change that I know has happened is taking a look at that staffing model, and campus safety itself is, they've made some revisions to that in the hope that it's a little bit easier to attract. It is harder to sort of hire folks who can work, one shift here, one shift there. Thinking about that staffing model, trying to think about what will help us more effectively attract qualified, diverse, female, and otherwise candidates. That's already been a discussion or conversation too in campus safety. So it absolutely has been a part of the conversation, not just in terms of campus safety, but the campus broadly. And I do appreciate the importance of having, particularly with campus safety with any sort of student-facing group, a population that really models and reflects, right, our student population, making sure that students are living and learning in a community where you really do see yourselves reflected within that community. So I guess the short answer is yes, we've absolutely talked about not just campus safety, but really kind of our campus from a faculty and staff perspective and its composition broadly. It's interesting though, that conversation, believe it or not, has been happening since even before the DE&I task force was configured, formulated, before the faculty and staff working group sort of came together. So the reason I mention that, there's some nice groundwork that sort of fed into that working group and their discussion around recruitment. Does anybody know somebody who serves on a working group? No? So does an SGA member? I'm presuming no, because you all know each other, right? If you're on SGA, you know each other. All right. So I think one question, and I know you guys are super busy, and I know this. I know your commitment here in SGA is valuable. It's important, and I imagine a bit time consuming. I would just offer, right? I think SGA is an important body here on campus, and I think as we're thinking about, I kind of listed through the topics or the areas that we're exploring over the next academic year. If it's something that you really think SGA, kind of needs to have a voice in, please just, think about reaching out. I think there's a lot of value, right, bringing your experience here into those conversations. You guys talk about a lot of different topics. I think you have a very a good perspective on sort of the student body, right? So if you don't mind me shamelessly plugging, I would just say, I think, having SGA representation on particularly the student working group and the responsiveness working group would be, I think, really, really vitally important.
Would you be able to just talk a little bit more about the student working group, maybe just explain how frequently they meet and what they primarily discuss and what the ultimate goal of the working group is?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of the working groups are meeting every other week for an hour. There have been some exceptions as meetings have fallen on spring break. It required folks to, forego the spring break to attend a working group meeting. So all the working groups are meeting every 2 weeks for an hour. I did mention some of the things they talked about in terms of social hosting, residential life. But before I think we kind of stepped into into a specific topic, I will be honest, there's really just a lot of conversation around just free form, right? Not structured conversation around student experience broadly, right? What sorts of things impact a sense of community, a sense of belonging, a sense of inclusion, right? In the classroom, outside of the classroom. Are there particular places of the university that feel very sort of siloed to students? Meaning, it almost this is not entirely true, but does it feel like faculty in all the world of sort of your intellectual life never, from a university perspective, doesn't seem well connected to, or is deeply siloed in terms of students' not, social life, beyond academic life, right? So we really dug in and tried to make sure that we were fully exploring the student experience now. On that, so there are 12 folks on that working group, and I'm going to tell you specifically, it's majority students, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and there are 8 students. It's a 12-person working group, and 8 of those 12 members are students. That's 8 students, right? So we also had conversations around, do we have sort of the full breadth of information we need? Should we think about focus groups? Who do we need to talk to make sure that we have the right information around sort of student experience across a wide range of identities? And I'm defining identity very, very broadly, right? I don't know that I don't think you get to say, okay, we had 10 conversations, so we're done, we know it. I think we always have to be culling information in terms of student experience. I don't think the fact that we engaged early on in those conversations means that, okay, we're done, we know everything we need to know. I think that does need to be an ongoing process. But that was a big part of our early work, and if you think about it, we've had predominantly spring semester. So we're very, very early in our, when you add on to the fact that we needed to spend time just making sure we had good information, right? What is a student experience? What is it like academically? What is it like socially, right? I'll tell you something that we hear a lot. I heard it well before I hit the student group. Is programming and over-programming and places and spaces where it feels like in some places maybe we don't have as much programming as we need, and in other places we're like, you can have 500 of this one thing in this one area, like over-programming and very concentrated in particular areas. And how do you, how do you think about that carefully, and how do we think about really, really connect? How do we really think about programming in a way that truly sort of speaks to sort of the interests and to you guys? I think wellness has been a big support in wellness. I think that has also been a really big topical kind of part of our discussion. So what do students feel they have access to? What do students feel is missing? That sort of thing. Hi.
Hi. So I was wondering that how can we find access to your previous report and when the next report come out?
So this task force has a created report, but there, I hope everyone on campus knows, President Casey brought in some consultants. I'm going to get these dates wrong. Was it 16, 17? Because we're in 17, 18, right? Academic year, mostly spring, 2017. And they did produce a report. So if you want a copy of the recommendations that came from that initial report, and do you want me to send it to like the president to Eli to sort of circulate around SGA? I'm more than happy to do that. Or whatever you want me to do.
Is it accessible online?
So we don't have it. Great. That's a very good point. We don't have. We didn't post it to say a website. I can ask if they can do that. I don't know what feels like good, and I'd love your recommendations in terms of what's a good, like, students know to go here for information. I'm happy to send it for the SGA to sort of circulate amongst your members, right, the recommendations, and I can think of, I mean, if you guys have ideas about, well, this is where students are gonna go to look for that kind of information, just let me know and I can work on getting it posted to a more common, you know, to a website versus emailing it to individuals. Is that helpful? In terms of the next report, I'm not 100% certain. I know that we would like to have a set of sort of short-term. You might not have as many long-term because we have to continue to work on recommendations. A set of short-term recommendations at least. I can't promise this will happen just because of the time that we've had. But I know the goal originally was to have some recommendations for the end of this semester, 2018. Whether we will sort of get there or not, I'm not 100% certain, but I feel like we could, you know, certainly within the next academic year. The climate group is thinking about ways we communicate this out to the community. And here's where I think SGA would be really, really helpful. What do you know, if you have thoughts around the best way to do that communication out to the student population, absolutely don't hesitate to let me know, right? So I don't have a deadline or a date yet for you in terms of a second report, but I want everyone to know to the larger question about what is the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is for the work of these working groups to sort of roll up into a larger institutional strategic plan. And that would need to, by necessity, be available to the community. It's a pretty, that it might not sound like a big ambitious task. It actually kind of is when you're thinking about all of the moving parts these working groups are working on, and remembering that students are also full-time students with a whole life, and people are, same with faculty, same with staff, and not that it isn't important, but it's a lot of work on plates that are already, that I appreciate are, you know, they're already full. So a strategic plan, while important, to do done well, can take some time. And I think that's the most important kind of work, done well. And I think that is kind of number one priority for the task force generally, when we do sort of get to that point of a strategic plan, making sure that it's done well. Yes?
Are the working groups involved at all in the hiring processes for the director of Shaw and like director of Alana, and what do you see, if you're not involved now, I guess, like what do you see that turning into once they are hired?
So working group members, actually that's not entirely true. So yes, some working group members have participated in both of those groups. Mostly in their role, sort of their normal sort of day-to-day roles. So both as a working group member, but also in their other hat or other 12 hats they wear, they participated. So yes, we have working group members participate on both of those, participate in both of those searches in some form. How those roles sort of fit into the task force work and DE and I broadly, I think I'm master of the obvious. I think they're really, really important and critical roles, right? It's DE and I broadly. Alana, absolutely. And wellness, we've talked a lot about topics, right, that the working group, you know, they've focused on. Wellness has really been a big one. I think at the end of the day, you will see our leadership group, they're thinking about kind of what a staffing structure looks like. And OISS, Alana, Shaw, the director of LGBTQ programs, WIMST, I'm OUS, I'm sure I'm missing something in there. They are absolutely going to be a core and critical part of kind of what the ultimate staffing model is going to look like. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah,
okay. Any other questions for me? Okay. So I don't know how much time I had, I won't bore you with any other sort of drone on and on, but I want to just say again, so my name is Tamala Flack. If you think of any other questions, if you decide you might want to participate either this year or next, or just generally, I am a resource for you here on campus, students, faculty, and staff. My office is in 102 Lathrop Hall across from the Cove. Anyone who's come to talk to me, I hope they will agree with this. I will do everything to make myself available, not, evenings, weekends, all sorts of times if necessary, but my door, I don't turn folks away. So absolutely, if you have any other questions that you think about after this, please don't hesitate to email. Okay? Thanks.
Thank you so much. I thought that was great. And we will follow up, and I will try to send out that report to all of you by email. So why don't we move right into the DAC election? If the candidates would come down, that would be great. I don't think the statements need to be read, but if either of you or both of you want to just say some remarks to the body, that would be great.
All right, well, I'm Brian, this is Koku. We're running on a split ticket. We decided to do that because this year we've been working together under the current treasurer, Laurel, and we've been working very well together, handling scheduling, handling internal accounting. We both worked with last year's treasurer, Anand, to build the working schedule and to handle our internal accounting. Last year, if you want to say anything.
I would say, so yeah, we work well together in and out of the BAC. I think Anand was really helpful in grooming us, and he mentored us, and I think we'll be ready for the treasurer role next year and splitting it. I think we'll be able to support each other throughout the role and it won't be too much of a responsibility.
Yeah, we ran the finance module training for student groups this year together. I did that last year as well. We handled all the scheduling. It was a pretty successful year on the BAC from our standpoint, so we want to continue with that, continue with a lot of the precedents we helped build, and continue to be more fiscally responsible.
Okay, are there questions? Senator Seljo?
Yep. What's one thing that you would do differently than Laurel and Anand did in the past? Something you would like to change in some year?
Right in front of her.
That's I mean, that's a tough question. We try and kind of make changes as we go. We rolled out the reform package with Anand last year, and although that went pretty far in restricting the amount of brown bags, and we set like soft precedents that we have in the committee. We have precedents on travel. We have precedents on the amount of brown bags we have and on items that we usually don't fund. But I think going into next year, if we could get some legislation passed that would amend the constitution of the BAC, that would set some of these in stone, and then that would give student groups access to see these things instead of having them as internal precedents, kind of make them part of our bylaws of the committee. I think that would solidify some of the changes we've made over the 2 years that I've been on the committee.
And just to add on to that, I think this year we tried to get youths get involved a little bit more, but I don't think the student groups use it as much as they should have. So next year rolling out, we'll make it a big emphasis to try to get student groups to be more accountable and to know what is going on with their balance, and to also make sure that we can hold student groups accountable in terms of what they're doing with their accounts and the money that we give them.
And then just try to get better use out of the post-funding event forms too. We did use those a little bit my sophomore year, but just to see those really involved, and kind of one thing that I do personally is create like a vault on my computer of old reoccurring proposals. So if we see Gospel Fest every year, kind of just have a file that has all of the Gospel Fest proposals that we've seen in years past, so we compare the two, and that would allow us to ask like better questions of the group as to why they're adding or subtracting certain things.
What's the most important criteria that you guys use when deciding whether or not to fund a proposal?
I guess for me personally, I would say, what effect does that have on campus? What are you bringing back to campus? So even if it's the student groups travel and it's just for the club themselves, what are you bringing back? Are you holding an event, a brown bag, to let people know what you learned at that event? Or what positive impact are you going to have at this event on campus? So I think that's the most important thing. Even if there's about 15 people that attend the event, if those 15 people got a lot out of those that single event, I think you could consider that event as a success. So I think the positive impact the event brings to the campus.
I like to, well, we're not allowed to weigh one event versus another event, obviously, but I like to, when considering events, consider the overall amount of programming at Colgate, and I like to put a lot of emphasis on under-programmed types of events to make sure that there is, like, you know, a healthy balance of events. I mean, as we just heard, sometimes there's a lot of programming in one area and not a lot in another, so I like to weigh events with a balanced perspective on programming on campus as a whole.
What is like the toughest decision you've had to make during your tenure on the PAC?
It's always tough when student groups ask to travel and there's like a small amount of people going away to like a location and it costs a lot of money, because these groups always make the claim that this travel with what they're able to bring back to campus makes the event worthwhile, although it is such a high cost per person. So personally for me, that we've been cutting back on a lot of like small group travel lately, and so it's always hard to deny things in the past that we've been approving that's based on these new precedents that we've been setting. So it's like flight travel, for instance, it's always expensive.
And I would say, for me personally, I would say when a group presents a good event, but they have really bad budget, and you want to set a precedent where groups are putting a lot of effort into the meeting and what they're using the budget for exactly. So having to at least temporarily deny an event to have that group go back, I think that's always harsh, especially when the deadline is close. But I think knowing an event is good, but knowing that the group is not putting in enough effort to make sure that the event might be successful, that's always hard to deny.
Yeah. Like for example, Colgate Cooks, a relatively new club, came in front of us this past semester with a pretty poor budget compared to last year's leadership. Chris Fisher handled the budget very well because he started the club and got it off the ground. So it was hard to deny the new budget this year because it was such a poorly made budget. We wanted to have them put more effort into it to be more fiscally responsible. But since they're a new organization, taking away funding really is stifling for a club that doesn't have, like, you know, a very concrete set of you know, things that they're used to doing. So that was tough to deny.
I have one question. How do you feel that this semester's budget went in terms of, do you think that the money ran out too quickly, or was that what you were projecting, or is there anything that you might, looking back on this semester, do differently?
Yeah, it's tough to compare this semester, this year, to the previous spring, because that previous spring we had about $75,000 in rollover. Anon really was like proud of the fact that we didn't run out of funding, but that was because in the fall of that semester prior to that, we ran out. If you looked at this spring compared to the spring of 2015 and 2016, we were about on line with our funding. So I don't know if I'd go back and change anything. I thought we did a pretty good job with what we were given.
And when there are good events, there's no reason to just deny events just because we want to keep funding and have rollovers. If the events are good, we're going to fund it and fiscally responsible. Fund the events and get everyone scheduled.
I'd much rather run out of funding than have funding left over, because the student activities fee does come from graduating seniors, and to, you know, carry that money over the graduating seniors paid into a next semester's fall would feel like we're doing them an injustice, you know.
The treasurer is a pretty impactful position within the SGA. How do you foresee yourselves working with the new SGA administration next year and the new body as well?
I think we foresee a healthy and
Is there any further comment on that? Okay, any more questions? All right, thanks guys, appreciate it. You could just step out, yeah, thanks. Okay, so once they're out of the room, I will see if Laurel wants to comment or endorse, and then we can entertain any motions. So Laurel, anything from you?
Well, first I'd like to endorse them. They've been fantastic to work with, and I really have nothing but positive things to say about them, and their dynamic. Maybe I should ask, does anyone have any questions? Because I think their experience definitely speaks for itself. But what? They're running out of posts.
Do you want to come down? I don't know. Are there any questions for Laurel? If there's none, you don't. Okay, sorry.
Just slightly curious why they're running on a split ticket, because they're both seniors unless one of them's going abroad. No?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was actually a decision that they made fairly recently.
No, you can start.
And it's honestly worked really well this year, in my opinion. It's nice to have the responsibilities of the treasurer divided up. And as long as you're good communicators with your partner, I think it's actually a really efficient way of doing it, and I'm glad Emily and I tried it this year. And yeah, I think it'll go really well.
Yeah, I'm just gonna chime in on that one. Like, having a split treasurer, like, on the BAC as well has been like really effective and like really good in terms of like balancing out like, what is required of a treasurer. So I think it's like, it's good stuff. It's not like gonna be problematic.
And the split ticket, not this one, but the split ticket idea in general was originally suggested by Anand, who is king of the BAC and Colgate. So just for consideration of that.
That's a good question. Any other questions? Just to clarify, they'll be, I mean, there's running split, but they'll be doing it at the same time. It's not like on and off, like one semester, other semester. It's,
yeah, no, they'll be working together.
Okay, questions for Laurel? All right, thanks, Laurel. Okay, do I see any motions?
Motion to vote.
Is that seconded? Okay, do I see any other motions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of motion to vote? Motion passes. We will now enter voting procedure. A, to approve both of them. Slate's a slate, yeah, since it's one ticket. B, no, and C, abstain. Marie or Derek, do we have a number that we're looking for?
Oh, yeah, let me pull up that attendance. I think it's 30, but I'm gonna double check that. Oh, well, so it's 1. Sorry.
There's 8 clickers up there.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Now we have 34.
Okay, that's probably good.
Yeah, there was 34.
Great.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, oh, okay, sorry.
That's, okay.
So, they approved 30 to 4. 30 with 4 abstentions.
Okay, got it. All right, so okay, awesome. Hallie will run and get them, or Laura, yeah, whoever. Okay, let's keep moving. When they walk in, we will clap for them. Okay. All right. Congratulations. Looking forward to it. Okay, let's move on. All right, you're welcome to.
Yeah, so we first semester, in the first semester we changed the SOC, and one of the things SOC now needs to do is set up a list of things every club needs to do, and some of those are trainings that the leaders need to go through, and so if they don't do them, we have to set up some sanctions and regulations to kind of enforce them, and so there was no real language in the Constitution that specified how that would go about. So that's what this bill does. Is it recognize that there's just a lot of ambiguity in the Constitution in how the SOC would do that. So it just like sets up a direct way that the SOC can set up sanctions and regulations for clubs on campus. SGA recognized clubs. Any questions?
So we saw this bill now 3 weeks ago, so hopefully you have had a chance to look at it. Are there questions for Dewey, concerns, things that people want me to scroll down and look at further?
I'm sure you've all read it, so.
I would certainly hope. I know I have. Any particular section?
Any typos in the?
I think. Is it a prerogative, like first R not supposed to be there? I think it's prerogative.
Where is that?
An act to establish the, that first R not supposed to be there? It's prerogative.
Well, that's why we're here, so go ahead and change that.
Prerogative. I think it's prerogative. Yeah. Take that.
So that's how you spell
the word. That's what I was asking.
I mean, now that I see it, I kind of agree with you, Andre. I don't think Marco's right.
Can you check it? Actually, are there?
I'm gonna check it.
Can we get a fact check on that?
I actually didn't know that.
It's right.
Really? I thought it was prerogative.
Alright, it's just not.
Parliamentary.
It's the right one?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's right.
I wouldn't doubt David over myself.
Isn't there a song like that? Okay, anyway. Anything else? Yes, Mike.
Another grammar issue, if you go to
Love them. Keep them coming.
scroll up a little bit more. Criteria is technically a plural now. So
How did I miss that?
Where are we looking at?
So I changed that to criterion.
Yes, where is that?
the last therefore clause.
Yeah, criterion.
So then it would be no, it should be plural. Then it would be criterion that have been said.
Right.
Just
Right.
build on that.
Are we good with it being
So
criteria or what?
Aren't there multiple criteria?
There will be. If this passes, there will be.
Right, so you have to say have been said.
Criterion that have been said.
This is a great use of time. I would agree.
Yeah, okay.
So it's has to have
We're gonna leave it as criteria unless anyone objects. Seeing none. Okay. Is there anything in terms of the content that people would like to ask about? If not, the chair would be in favor of a motion to vote. Yeah, I'm assuming these are a lot of people in favor of a motion to vote. All right. If there's any questions, raise your hand now. Okay, thank you, Senator Wilbanks. Senator Becker, is that a motion?
Yes, motion to vote.
Okay, is that seconded? Okay, do I see any other motions? Seeing none, all in favor of Senator Becker's motion to vote. We will now enter voting procedure. A yes, B no, C abstain.
Is that Kathy, right?
The numbers.
How come every single one is italicized except A?
I'm gonna get David on the phone.
Well, he tries.
You're in C, yeah. I know my alphabet.
C is nice.
C is an italics.
How we doing? Senator Becker, are we good?
Oh, we have 31 right now.
All right, I'd say, okay.
32.
Okay. Anyone, last vote? 5, 4, 3, 2, okay, shut it down.
Passes 32-4 and 2 abstentions.
Lovely.
Stay and come see me.
Okay, thank you to the SOC. Am I correct in saying that there's going to be 2 bills following that? Okay, can't wait for those. Okay, so now we will see. No, that wasn't a joke. I just sound like I'm being sarcastic, but that was not. I'm being serious. Okay, this is our last item under new business, and it is a constitutional change. So we will see it today and then vote on it in 2 weeks' time. So if Chris and Ben want to come up and present it, that'd be great. Before they talk, I would just please request that everyone actually pays attention, because not to say that the SOC bill wasn't important, but this has some pretty substantive changes. So if we could all just pay attention, that'd be great.
Hey, what's up, everyone? So, so basically, what this whole amendment is doing right here is it's making an application process for becoming a member of the Gov Board and the SGA, you know, because it's a pretty important position, and right now what's been happening is people haven't been really valuing their position, right? So this will hopefully add a lot more value to the position, make people actually work for the position instead of just having it handed to them.
Yeah. It's hopefully, you know, you kind of get the applicants who are actually dedicated to it, and I think this process would also kind of take a load off of the Senate as well, because you guys have to go through the kind of the humdrum process of electing the governing board members. Now it's kind of reduced to a committee of that will be composed of the president, vice president, secretary of campus affairs, and 2 senators to be nominated by you guys. So I think it's kind of a pretty fair process as to how members will be selected. And the application kind of will be determined by the elections commissioner to give them the broad overview of how to determine how they want to do it. But essentially, this fundamentally changes the application process and the selection of those governance board members.
How are you going to nominate the 2 senators?
Ideally, it would be kind of the question posed to you guys, if there's any senators who are willing to join the selection committee. I guess you nominate yourself, and you guys will choose amongst each other. And I'm guessing by the time the new senators will come around, you guys should be able to select that. If I'm right, Allie, right? Okay, fantastic.
It said that you changed it to summer. What exactly does that mean? Does it just mean as soon as possible in the year?
So we wanted to make sure that we also included first years in the process as well. So whenever we get notified that first years, they have their emails, and their emails are set up and ready to go. The elections commissioner will send out an email to all the student body in the summer, where they could have access to the application, and the review committee. Ideally, by mid to late July, they would the application process would close, and the committee would review all the applicants and choose from there who they believe would be best to be on the governance boards. And that makes it easier to, well, actually the main purpose is to make it easier for the students to get acquainted to the governance board positions, and so that once the first meetings of various governance boards start happening, they can be there, and their schedules are also accounted for by the chairs of those committees.
there like a way to ensure that the first years would then check their emails? I feel like most first years like aren't checking over the summer, so it would be like a real bummer if they came to school and saw this email and then completely overlooked it and they wouldn't have a chance. So like I don't know if that you see a problem with that.
Well, personally, I get where you're coming from.
Right.
You probably won't check it, but I do think for the purpose of course selection, at the very least, they have to look at their emails during the summer to register for courses. I believe that your FSEM also sends you a project that you have to, a reading project that you have to do over the summer.
Okay.
So it's banking on the eagerness of the
Okay,
first
I
years
don't,
to.
yeah, I would really, yeah.
And also we're all keeping up with those campus distribution letters, right?
Yes. I think Derek had a question.
Should CLC be included because they're the student government?
I don't think
That was oh. Can I make a friendly amendment now?
Yeah.
It's not my bill.
Oh, yeah.
I'm friendly too.
Well, I didn't know if, yeah, I could be, if I would propose a friendly amendment to add CLC to the, where was it?
That might be.
You mean section one is the, yeah. Like a representative of the CLC.
Okay.
Can I just butt in there, if that's okay? I was thinking maybe it's better to just actually, going back to Jenny's question, is to just slash the senators. Because I'm not seeing, maybe it's just I don't get it, but I'm not seeing the timetable of how that would work. A, I'm not sure at what point we're gonna choose the 2 senators, and B, the new senators that are gonna be elected, they won't actually congregate before the summer. They're just going to be elected and then they will meet in the beginning of next fall.
Okay.
So I'm not seeing how that process will work. So I think maybe just the incoming president and vice president, their input, I think might, and the Secretary of Campus Affairs, I think those 3 people, in my opinion, and maybe the body will disagree, I think that would be enough for this process.
Yeah, those would have to be positions that get decided in the spring that are the entire academic year. Secretary of Campus Affairs, President, Vice President, Liaison is one of those. I don't know if the CLC chair gets selected in the spring, Derek, you know?
Wait, sorry, me?
CLC chair.
They should, yeah, I think that.
Does that get selected in the spring?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Madison was selected this year.
Okay.
Yeah, because it can't be a freshman or a first year.
So if the bill is friendly, we could just slash the senators and we could do this, the chair of the CLC if that is something that people are interested in.
Yeah.
What do the principal authors think about that?
One of the main things I'm concerned about is just kind of like keeping it at an odd number just for,
Okay.
yeah, keeping it at an odd number to make sure that we don't run into like deadlocks when it comes to selecting. But that's one of the,
I'm pretty sure that the CLC chair is elected in the fall because it makes sense that the first years would vote on that too, to like be their chair.
Isn't the CLC chair just the senior class president?
No.
No, I mean, typically yes, but not necessarily.
Like it was Allie Duke last year. She wasn't the president, was she?
I mean, do we see a necessity to have the CLC chair there, especially mentioning the odd number factor? Does anyone want to advocate for the CLC chair there? Derek?
Yes.
Yes, you do.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh, should I speak to it?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I mean, I'm not necessarily like saying that that's not a good thing. I'm just saying that I don't think there's a person because they're not elected until the fall. So that doesn't make sense.
Kind of speaking to that point, I don't know if doing this over the summer is necessarily a good idea. Like I know a lot of people have internships or kind of checked out during the summer, so having this due by July, I think you potentially miss out on a strong pool of applicants that won't be totally checked into what's happening on campus in the fall. And then on that point, I also think like we don't meet until the middle to end of September. I'm not sure what the timeline is with governance board meetings, but I think if you send out the email while first years are going through orientation, and that goes out to everyone, so you can have the kind of the applications end by the first or second days of class, which is usually a Friday, and then have like elections or whatever the selection process is finished up within like the first or second week of the semester. But I understand like the need to get it moving early on. I don't know. I
Well, the main problem is that I got confronted with, because what alerted me to this was I got an email from one of the chairs of the curriculum committee, I believe, asking for the names of students on their committee. They had no idea who they were. And I got directed to Dean Simpson, who was involved with the governance board, and she's on one herself. And she said that they have issues with receiving the student names who were supposed to be on the governance board. They receive them late in the semester, and they would prefer to receive them kind of like by the first week of school or before then. And because it conflicts with when the governance board members aren't selected on time, technically on time, the chairs aren't able to consider the student schedules into it, and if they don't consider those schedules, you kind of run into, I can't really make it to the meeting because this conflicts with the class time, and also it kind of like doesn't allow for the student to help set the agenda for the year as well, depending on the committee, and that's really important when it comes to the student affairs board, academic affairs board, and to a certain extent a lot of affairs board as well. So that's the reason for wanting to get it done early, but I do understand your concern with people being checked out in the summer.
Do you foresee that something like an academic affairs board, student affairs board, like they're being like worked over the summer, like after June, like they're being worked before the school year starts?
No, I wouldn't anticipate that. I'm pretty sure professors probably don't want to do anything over the summer because it's a big deal. A chunk of it is composed of professors, and so if I'm not mistaken, they kind of take from last semester's agenda and try to roll that, put something together for the new semester. But I would also say that it's not the exact deadline isn't set in stone. It's left up to the elections commissioners and the committee to set that up. So if there is a need to shift the date to kind of like mid-August, early mid-August, that is very possible. As it is getting closer to the academic year, and students would possibly be less checked out because the beginning of the academic year is coming up.
I just have to revisit this only because it's kind of left, we never, do we feel, I mean, Derek is advocating for the CLC chair, you're advocating for odd numbers. Is there a way that we can fix this issue? Yeah.
I was originally just advocating for a representative because I think Jenny is right, it probably is picked in the fall. I'm just advocating for a representative,
Sure.
But I mean, it's not a huge deal,
Sure.
Liaison could be a good one.
Oh, I was gonna say if you wanted to have an odd number, maybe parliamentarian, because don't they serve spring to fall term?
I'm impartial though, I'm not allowed to make. Yeah. As a point of information, we wanted to stick to people who were like elected by the student body. Secretary of Campus Affairs directly oversees governance boards, so that's why that person is in here while not being elected by the student body. The intentional vagueness of the language with the two senators was sort of just to leave it to the discretion of the body and the speaker to figure it out by the end of the year, who would be interested in doing that. But I do see the issue with not really with having a new Senate that hasn't met before the summer.
Senator Selja.
Aren't Senate elections also going to happen in the spring right now?
Yeah, that was one concern that I had. Additionally,
so the returning senators are going to know who's serving, right?
Yes.
That could be fair. That's my thing.
I guess there's two ways that I see this going. Is one, we get rid of the senators, or the other option is I would not make it so broad. I think that if you leave things like this in the Constitution, they tend to not be done. So if you want to make it so that the speaker nominates someone before they leave the post, I mean, I'm not necessarily in favor of that. I don't think I should have more power than I already do. But I don't know. I mean, I'm still in favor of there not being senators in this process. That's my opinion. But I would motion for a caucus, but because this is the last chance for a constitutional bill, I don't want to move into a caucus and then not have the ability to change things. So I guess I'm just going to kind of like flimsily ignore protocol. So why don't we just do this? Just a couple straw polls, and then we can try to hash it out quickly. Raise your hand if you think senators should be involved in this process. Okay, raise your hand if you don't think they should be involved in the process. A lot of people didn't raise their hand.
Well, me personally, I kind of wanted to open it up to as many people as possible because I didn't want it to be contained to 3 specific people because I personally feel like that's a little bit unfair to them, and I also wanted a broad opinion of people who would be on the governance board, and I thought that the next best solution would be senators who kind of are aware of like the issues on campus, what's important, and you guys have a pretty good feel of the people who are in your classes or the people that you know, and so you can kind of be aware of the people who are running, and that's why I went for the senators. But there are other options, and I am open to them.
If Jenna and I and you were picking, they're like really important positions, and so I feel like there needs to be like checks and balances. Like, not saying that I'm gonna go rogue and be like, whoa, like, you know, but I just think there actually needs to be checks and balances.
I'm inclined to agree, just because I think there's 1 or 2 people in this room, probably more at the school, would be ticked off if it was just me and Marie choosing people for these positions.
Right. That's why I wanted to open it up.
That's fair. Those are good points.
Yeah, I agree. I think the 2 senators, that's a whole different branch of the SGA. That's the legislative branch. Yeah, I think that makes it more equitable, and especially if we could, as a body, this doesn't have to be in the bill, prioritize senators who have served on governance boards, just so that everybody in the group understands like what it entails.
I guess as a point of information too, if the senator was involved in their own selection, they have to recluse themselves from the discussion and the vote.
That's a good point about having experience on governance boards.
Yeah.
I feel like if you don't.
Okay. I mean, unless there are proposals for friendly amendments or other concerns or questions, yeah, okay.
What if during our last meeting of the spring semester we elect 2 people? Like, people like send in applications or write a ballot statement like the election commissioners have us do, and we just vote on who we want to be represented in this.
Would people have interest in doing that? Like, would they want to have that position? Would they say, I would like to submit a ballot statement to be the senator that over the summer selects the governance board members? Raise your hand if you would be interested in doing that. Keontre. Okay, all right, yeah, okay.
I'd also be open to expanding it to 2 additional senators if you guys feel it would be more equitable to do that, to have more of a voice
It's a ton of power
in that process. So it's instead of 5 people, we move up to 7, just so that it would be more equitable in that situation. But I'm not sure how.
I just feel like it would be that senators could gang up on the president, vice president, and secretary of candidates.
Yeah, that splits it 4-3.
Yeah.
4-3.
Senator's on.
This is like a legitimate question for you guys, because I don't know exactly how this works, but like, is there, so say we were to have 2 senators picking, and then for whatever reason, like, they pick some horrible board leader, like, whatever, is there some way, like, on the back end to, like, is there a vote of no, like, do we re-vote on those people? Is there like a vote of no confidence? Is there any way of like checking that retroactively? You know what I mean? Because it seems like if there is, then having 2 isn't a big deal, and I would actually think it would be more efficient. But if there isn't, then maybe it would be necessary to have more people making that decision.
When you say bad, do you mean bad as in they're making bad decisions, or bad as in they don't show up?
I don't know. Actually, bad as in they don't show up is probably a more legitimate.
The different governance boards have their own checks and balances. If I don't show up to SAB, I get kicked off.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. And also, there's a clause in the Constitution that's actually that talks about the punishment for governance board members, and if this body, the Senate, receives word that a student is not attending regular governance board meetings, you guys have the power to remove them from their position. So if they are delinquent, you guys do have the power to remove them and kind of check that power in play.
Sorry, this is just like trying to figure out, so the senators, is that like these 40 senators, or is that the senators that are elected and that will be here in the fall?
Guessing from what you guys gave me about being interested in being on the selection committee, it would be this group of 40 senators, but would not be, from what I'm saying, it wouldn't be current seniors, but that's not possible. It would have to be restricted to the current first years, sophomores and juniors that are in Senate who would be eligible to be on the committee.
But I feel like it should be people that are elected to serve in the fall, because they would be the ones that are making the decision in the fall. But we're changing it? Do you see what I mean? What?
Like that, if these people have to be selected in the summer, it can't be somebody that gets elected in the fall, because it's already past the time.
No, but we're elected now. Like elections are happening now.
Well, then you run into the issue of that Senate hasn't convened yet,
Yeah, I know.
technically, so that's the only issue with that, but I do see your point.
Well, the other option would be there'd be senators who maybe didn't maybe if you won and you were on the board but you didn't win this election, then you're just like, that's not really a senator.
No, it's not. You just kind of be a random person.
Then what are you doing? Get out of there.
Yeah.
It's too much power for democracy.
I see maybe some troubling things in the bill that need to be rehashed.
Yes.
And I think that the overall idea is good, and so that's why I'm hesitant to table it, because then we won't be able to see it again.
Well, Eli, honestly, it's in my opinion, it's okay if we table it because it's something that has to be worked on. I'd rather put out something that is much more coherent and specific than this, if that has to be done. And so I understand that if you feel the need to table it, by all means do it, because I'd rather not have to deal with this again, or not that, but I'd rather just get it straight the first time than to mess it up several times after.
Okay, I mean, ultimately, it's not my decision, so I guess just to keep things moving, if there are more questions or friendly amendments that want to be suggested, I'll of course entertain those, and then I'll entertain any motions after that. And if people want a motion to vote, that's perfectly fine. If people want a motion to caucus, that's fine as well. Motion to table, any of the above, I won't make any sort of executive decision. So are there more questions or friendly amendments, or are there any motions? And I'll entertain anything at this point. Yes.
Motion for a 2-minute unmod.
Okay, is that seconded?
Like, maybe a solution to this, actually. We can theoretically cut this down. If this is constitutional change, I would suggest cutting this down and relegating the power to select governance boards to a committee to be appointed as governed by the bylaws, and then specify the process of that committee and the elections in the bylaws, which don't require a 2-week process.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you Harris can talk now.
So essentially, the friendly amendment there would be to basically scratch everything and write section 1, there will be a committee to review governance boards as specified in the bylaws.
And then we can bring this up in the bylaws, so we'll still have this full document. It'll just be in the bylaws, so then we don't need 2 weeks to change it.
Okay.
So then we can get it through for this summer instead of waiting for another whole year to change this process.
Yeah, and on the doc, you can just cut out the bottom. It already says selection committee, so you can just go down a bit more, right? Go to where we were just looking at. Yeah, you can just cut that part that says in consultation with a selection committee, and then we can put whatever we want, and then just cut consisting of X, Y, Z. It's 11.
Yeah, I see it. I mean, if I'm being totally honest, I was essentially just going to cut this and say members of the governance board shall be selected by a committee as per the bylaws.
But most of that stuff exists now. The stuff that's in there is stuff that already exists that isn't really in the purview of what we're talking about. Like no student may serve on both SAB and AAB.
I see what you're saying.
University Student Conduct Board, screening.
Okay, I see what you're saying here.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. There's no quick way to do this. What are some suggestions? If I just remove all the underlined stuff and return it to what it originally says, and then put in, you know what I'm saying?
You can just cut in consultation with a selection committee, period, and then we can go in the bylaws, and then.
Okay, where am I looking?
You can say with the selection committee as described per the bylaws, and then we can next week go in and then whoever's working on on the bylaw change can just go in and then specify what that selection committee looks like.
Selection be designated by bylaws
Yeah.
or something.
It's designated per the bylaw, whatever.
Okay. Do we still want these things to be changed as is?
That's all okay. That's just nullifying, that the Senate can approve. It's the Senate's job to approve all these people.
Can you tell me about these? I assume what these are is it's specifying the role of person X.
Yeah, section 2 is saying that it's not the Senate's job to elect them anymore. Section 3 is saying that it is the president's job. 4 is that it is the vice president's job, and 5 that it is the Secretary of Campus Affairs' job.
Right. So the only problem with that is that we are not quite certain that that is going to be the case anymore.
I think it is. I just think it is.
Well, that may be the case, but to specify so before putting it in the bylaws is a little bit problematic, yes.
This might be dramatic, but this body can elect new things to the Senate meeting if we all agree on it, right? Like new bills. What if we just created a whole new bill right now, really quick, just that committee will decide it. This doesn't even exist anymore until it exists in the bylaws, but we don't even have to see this because I'll copy and paste it, make it a bylaw change. We make a bill that does what we want it to do right now.
We can't do that because bills have to be submitted 48 hours in advance.
I think that
I'm allowed to override that. The question is, where is a bill gonna arise from thin air? Are you gonna do it right now? Because this is the last item on new business.
Yeah, no, somebody could do it. I mean, I'm not allowed to, but I'm sure somebody could.
Bills and constitutional.
I think we're almost here on this one. Sorry. Just because, does anyone, okay. Sorry, sometimes I sound like a complete asshole, and maybe I am, but I don't intend that. Okay, so just going back to this. Can you please tell me who specifically these are referring to?
Yeah.
Because I think the simple solution is to delete those for now.
Right.
Is that wrong?
Yeah, 2 is Senate, 3 is President, 4 is Vice President, and 5 is Secretary of Campus Affairs.
Can I delete them and everything will remain intact? Do these need to be changed?
Theoretically, we could just designate those in the bylaws. They don't need to be constitutional.
I could add to aid in the selection of the governance board student members if determined by the bylaws.
Yeah.
No?
I mean,
then you'd have to do that for every other position.
Yeah, it's kind of, we can get away with eliminating those entirely, I would say.
Yeah, because it basically, it kind of like predetermines what isn't there, and I don't think that's...
They can just be a bylaw responsibility rather than a constitutional responsibility.
Okay, so I'm going to delete these. Or you said...
I think...
oh, I see what you're saying. All right, okay, I understand what you're saying. All right, ignore everything that I've said. Any other things that people want? Did we fix it? I hope so. If not, we'll secretly edit it and nobody will notice. Do I see any motions? Yes.
Motion to vote.
Is that seconded?
Wait, we're not voting tonight.
You're right. You're right. You're totally right. Okay. All right. Any more questions? Okay. Great. Lovely. Sorry for all that. You guys can sit down now. Thank you. Okay. Good to the order. Okay, well, I just wanted to highlight a couple things. Please, actually pay attention to these announcements because they're particularly important this week. Just in terms of SGA announcements, State of the Association, Wednesday. Do we have a time on that? Is that 6 or 7?
I was also told the cabaret was the same night, so I wanted to get everyone else's opinion. Like, I don't know.
Cabaret's canceled.
Cabaret's canceled.
Okay.
Okay. So 5 or 6 or 7.
Raise your hand if you would like the options are going to be 6 or 7. Raise your hand if you would like 6. Raise your hand if you would like 7. It looks like 6 is the winner. You know what? Maybe when I send out an email asking what the next. What? Okay, so then it's definitely gonna be at 6 because our next president needs to give some remarks, and she has a class at 7. Okay. Any questions or other announcements? Hallie.
When is Senate meeting next week?
I will be sending out an email, and it'll be a doodle poll. I ask you all to please complete it because we need quorum to set a meeting time. There will be options. There will be Monday at X time, Wednesday at X time, or Thursday at X time, whatever we can find a room.
Monday and Wednesday, it seems to be.
Okay, so please, when I send you an email, it's either going to be tonight or tomorrow, please open it and please respond to the poll and select all of the options that you can make, okay? Why Hallie's probably asking that is because next week we are doing the liaison and secretary of campus affairs elections, which is a good point to make. If you're interested in running for those positions, you should reach out to Hallie or the people that are currently in those positions so that you can learn a little bit more about the role, and I'm sure she's going to send out an email stating when the deadline for those ballots will be. Okay, any other, yes, Jenny?
Can I just watch the middle area people in the back real quick, please?
Okay, anything else? All right, hopefully I wasn't too annoying tonight. Thank you all. The chair would be in favor of motion to adjourn. Seconded, it passes. Okay. Yeah, I think
Hey, that's a good idea.